do not register for that 10K or half marathon. You can do a full marathon with little to no experience, and you can do it sooner than what you think. There's no need to train for a year or 6 months. You can do it in 9 to 12 weeks without complete suffering and without injury. I actually did it in 9 weeks of prep in the summer heat, over 200 pounds, zero event experience. I was not a runner whatsoever. I got a stomach parasite during training, had a cold another week, but still managed to finish it in under 4.5 hours. So you can absolutely do this as well. Whether it's a bucket list item, you want to challenge yourself, or you just want to live a healthier lifestyle, this is absolutely the video for you. So we're going to cover the exact things that you need to do to crush your first marathon, what benefits you'll see, what to expect on race day, how to avoid common pitfalls. So this is as smooth of a win as possible. You'll feel good and you'll impress the hell out of your friends. I'm Angel with The Modern Man. Let's get to it. While a marathon is an incredible accomplishment, it really speaks to someone's level of dedication, effort, and perseverance. It is much easier than what you think, and here's why. You're remembering how tired you were that last time you ran, and it's just not a fair comparison. You'll likely be running this at a slower pace, and that allows you to really conserve energy. You also have proper fueling, which is gonna give you energy for hours, and you really just don't understand quite yet how quickly your body and mind can adapt when you regularly train. If you can run 2 to 3 miles a day without stopping, you 100% can do a marathon in the next 3 months. I promise you that. If you can't do 2 or 3 miles and you're not tremendously overweight or anything, you could still definitely do it in 4 to 5 months. My buddy is 260 pounds, couldn't even run half a mile, and he hit a 9-mile run by 5 weeks. My other friend struggled to run 2 to 3 miles on his first day, and he hit 10 miles by week 5. Absolutely crazy the adaptations your body can make. And here's the thing, there's no rule that says you can't take a walk break. And in my opinion, if you're jogging over 80% of the time and it's a very short break, that's pretty damn impressive. Now, it's probably a better idea to do a full 16 to 20 week training plan. I just read a Goggins book and I got way too hyped, but people think that they need 6 months or a year to prepare. But those people almost never actually use the 6 months to prep, and it's just an avoidance tactic that makes them feel, I guess, a little safer and secure. Before we get into the how, here are some of these surprising benefits that I didn't expect and what you stand to gain. The obvious is that you're gonna feel incredible for challenging yourself, crushing your goals, and really showing yourself that you can get a huge W. When you do really difficult things in life, it makes it so when other difficult things come up, you have that history that you can look back on and say, I can do this. So I don't wanna underscore how big those are, but here is what really surprised me. Health benefits. So my sleeping heart rate dropped from 61 down to 53. My blood pressure and A1C, they dropped from always bordering on high to being normal, and I lost 8 pounds. So not only did my body become more efficient and healthy, but I looked better from training, and hell, I felt way better from training. And this all happened in just 9 weeks of training. So imagine what you stand to gain from months and years of consistency. That's exactly what this builds you up for. I did not like running going into this, and I really didn't start to derive much enjoyment from it until near the end of the training. But now it's just something that I do, and I'm gonna have immensely improved quality of life as I age as a result. Now, by far my favorite benefit for training for the marathon, existing day to day just feels so much easier now. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but legit, the simple acts of, say, walking to the store, taking the stairs, and generally just moving around all feel much easier now. And that means that I have more energy to put into the things that I actually want to do. So here's how you do it. Number 1, register right now, go do it. I know you might feel like, oh man, I don't know if I could do this, but trust me, you can, and you will. Just register. If you're worried about having to drop out or something, maybe pick a small, cheap marathon or something, but really, it's just a few weeks of training and you got this. There's this power and commitment, and buying your entry, it's difficult to describe, but you just feel it and it helps you get inspired to jump into action and get into training. Time to gear up. So you need shoes that are gonna get you through this. Most people are using their gym shoes and they could set you up for a lot of pain and potential injury. I can't believe the shoes that I was gonna use before I knew better. But when you start getting to distances of like 6, 10 miles, what you're gonna notice is the shoes make a really big impact. So you wanna size your shoe up anywhere from about half a size to a full size of what you normally wear, because when you're on those longer runs, your feet start to swell a bit, and you don't want your foot being all cramped, your toenails purple and falling off because your foot is just constantly banging up against the end of your shoes. If you have a wide foot, get a wide shoe. As someone who has wide feet, I had no idea how magical it would be to wear a shoe that's actually the appropriate size for me. Next, if the wear on your old shoes looks something like this, it means that you overpronate when you run, or your arches collapse overly inward when your feet hit the ground. If this is you, look for shoes that are known as stability shoes. I understand sometimes there's this heavy concern in self-diagnosing. It sounds intimidating, and it always sounds easier than what it actually is at first. So if that's the case and you feel that, just go to the nearest Fleet Feet store. They'll diagnose all this stuff for you and ensure that you're getting a good shoe. Just tell them that you need a nice, comfortable shoe to train in, and they'll get you set up. If you want a great shoe on the cheap, just look for shoes that are the models from 2 to 4 years ago. That way you don't need to drop $160 on a pair of shoe. Oh, and by the way, Fleet Feet has a pretty awesome return policy. So if you don't love your shoes, even after a few runs, you can still return them. I believe it's 30 days. It might even be 60, not entirely sure, but it's definitely at least 30. For some optional gear, get yourself something to track your heart rate. It doesn't need to be insanely accurate. It can just be an Apple Watch is fine enough initially, or you can get an arm strap or chest strap. They're pretty cheap typically. We want this because if we track our heart rates on our runs, we'll be able to better understand our bodies, and we can see, okay, if I run over this heart rate, I start to get tired, or that's too much for me. And if I run over this heart rate, I get really sore the next day. So for example, after long runs, I noticed that running over 155 BPM for over an hour would absolutely murder my levels of energy, and it would just kill me for the rest of the day. So in future runs, even if I felt fine in the moment running at say 160, I knew that I should slow it down if I was planning on running much longer. We're getting in that season, so for cold weather, when it's less than 50 degrees out, you'll want to start considering gear that's going to keep you warm. So here's a chart that makes it nice and easy for what to consider wearing on cold days. There's a lot of budget options that are available on Amazon that work just fine, so don't feel like you've got to drop $70 for every single pair of thermal leggings or something. Oh, and do yourself a favor and get Body Glide or something for anti-chafing. Trust me, like you'll thank yourself. Bloody nipples. Step 3, get your plan in order. So you can just run. That might work for some people. But I think the old adage here is you fail to plan and you plan to fail kind of applies here. So you can get a running coach for around $60 to $100 a month. You can use a plan online, or you can make your own. If it'll help commit you and help your comfort levels, absolutely get a coach. They are fantastic. Alternatively, there's a lot of great plans available online from places like Marathon Handbook, Runner's World, and Boston Marathon. They all have great plans available, so you can follow those. Most of them are 16 to 20 weeks, so you either have to have that amount of time or do a little bit of improvisation. But here is how you can improvise or just build your own plan in general. The main idea is that around 80% of your runs should be considered easy. If you're just going in and you're trying to break records every single time that you run, you're likely to burn out and not get enough mileage in, or just plain get injured. What easy means is that you should be able to have a conversation during these runs without having to breathe multiple times per sentence. And excluding your first few weeks, you shouldn't really be sore from these runs. They're on the easy side. The other 20% of your runs will be tougher, and these are the 1 to 2 days a week that you might not look forward to. This will be a long run day and a threshold day where you're mixing in some speed work for a few sets with a little bit of breaks in between. I cannot stress enough the importance of adhering to this. If you like what you're hearing so far, drop this a like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss any great content in the future that might help you out. And if you're training for a marathon, or you've already run one and you've got some great tips or questions, drop them below. Here's a quick example of my schedule. Even at my peak week of around 40 miles, I never ran more than 4 to 5 miles a day on my easy days. And initially I thought 9:30 a mile was my easy pace, but it really was more like 10:15 to 11:15. So on my threshold day, I would run sets that look like these, just a few minutes faster per mile than usual, and I would track them on the app called Run Interval. Then the next week I would increase either the amount of sets or the time that I would hold that pace at. You can also incorporate some of these on your long run day, but these shouldn't be as difficult as what you're doing on your threshold day. It's typically going to be your marathon pace that you're shooting for. So Monday easy, Tuesday off day or cross training, Wednesday easy, Thursday threshold, Friday easy, Saturday off day or cross training, Sunday long run. And what cross training means is doing something like an elliptical or spin bike or swimming. You could even do an incline walk, but when you're doing a lot of running, it's probably better to stay off of the feet. I usually did one of these a week, but there were a few weeks where I felt like I really needed to take the full days off to recover fully. These were really in the heavier running weeks that I had. The principle to follow in setting up your next week is to not increase your weekly mileage by more than 10%. The exception being that you're likely gonna have some pretty fair jumps in the first 2 to 3 weeks that you're doing this as you get acclimated to running regularly. We do this because although it may feel like you can mentally push through it and just double your mileage every week, your smaller tendons and ligaments absolutely do not agree with you, and they need time to adapt to the demand that you're placing on them. You are not built different. This and running too hard is what causes so many people to have to drop out of training. I was training with 2 of my buddies, and a few weeks in, we got all amped up and we really jacked up the mileage by over 50% in the same week and cranked the amount of miles that we were doing on the long run. The very next day, my friends both hurt their knees and had to drop out of the marathon. And I had brutal back pain for 4 to 5 days after, and I thought I was gonna have to drop out as well. Then because we wanna be nice and recovered for our marathon, we'll wanna reduce our weekly mileage in the last 2 to 3 weeks of our training block. So I dropped from say 40 miles to 30 to 20 to about 8 miles in the week of the marathon, excluding the marathon, of course. If you can get in the mid 30s a week for mileage, you're gonna be plenty good to go. Initially, you have some good jumps, but then the mileage is really only going up 2 to 3 miles a week after that, and then tapering near the end. Now that you have your plan in place, it's time to put in the work. It's okay if you need to miss days, but don't let weather be an excuse for missing a day, and it really requires you being honest with yourself. So if it's just a little bit of rain, go run. If it's below freezing and it's pouring rain, maybe hit the treadmill or some kind of cross training instead for that day. If you need to take a rest day, just be honest with yourself. Don't feel guilty if you need to take one, just take one. Make sure though that you're not missing the faster days or the longer days. And again, I wanna reiterate, be honest when it comes to if you needed that rest day or not. Number 4, time to fuel up. No need to overcomplicate this. This is your first race, so we're gonna be super generic here. Buy running gels for use on your long run days. You'll use them every 30 to 45 minutes as your stomach can tolerate. Not only are these gonna provide you with sodium that you lose when you sweat, but it'll replenish the carbohydrates that your body is burning for fuel. You should be doing this regardless of if you feel great and have all the energy in the world. Most people will run out of gas within 1 to 2 hours without using gels, and they'll feel really dead tired afterwards and won't be able to do anything for hours. Carbs serve as your fuel, so you wanna make sure that you have a sufficient amount the day before your long runs. And if you notice that your run was way more tiring than normal after just a few miles, or you're completely dead to the world post-run, there's a fair chance that you consumed all the carbs in your body that you had stored up. Take note of the foods that you had the day before and the day of on days that you feel full of energy so that you can know what works for you and you can replicate that. I recommend practicing carb loading for your marathon and potentially practicing your carb load on a long run so that you can ensure optimal performance on race day. The max amount of carbs that your body can store is about 10 grams per kilogram of body weight. So I recommend getting at least half of that number. And don't think that this means that you can just eat all of the lasagna, cake, and pizza that you want. You really want to avoid a ton of fiber, fat, and protein on your carb load because A, you won't be able to consume the carbs because you'll be too full. And then B, when you're running and you have to take a break mid-run, it's gonna sound like World War II mortars when you're in that porta potty. I opt for things like sugary sports drinks, honey, gummy worms, white bread, bagels for some of my heavy carb choices. Number 5, we're at race day. Don't deviate much from what you've practiced. You're gonna be able to run a lot further and faster than what you're used to, but since this is your first one, try and really pace yourself for at least the first 20 miles. It is really easy to get sucked into the energy of the event. You want to pass people, you don't want to be passed. Just run your race. Most runners don't do this very well, and you'll see a lot of them walking after a few hours, after 18 miles. I recommend using your own gels and hydration that you practice with instead of what's provided on the course, because aid stations on these courses can be a bit unpredictable depending on the size of the marathon. And trying something new may have dire brown consequences. So it isn't make or break, but it's a good idea on your first race. Lastly, some common pitfalls and mistakes. I covered a bunch of these earlier, but here are some of the bigger ones. To reiterate, do not continually crank up your miles after your first few weeks of getting acclimated. You're not built different. I've seen so many people make this mistake and just don't be one of them. Another one is really doing your PT work. If you have concerns about your knee, everybody has knee problems, your ankle, your back, whatever it is, make sure that you're doing the proper strengthening, stretching, and mobility work, and don't assume that if the issue is temporarily resolved, that it's gone for good and that it's not gonna come back, because it will come back and it will bite you in the ass if you don't keep it in check. I had an IT band issue early on and I was able to resolve that in my most difficult weeks through continual work, but I stopped doing all the PT work during my taper, and guess what? I had IT band issues on the marathon around 15 miles in, and it killed my level of enjoyment from there on out for the rest of the race. And it really stopped me from getting the 4-hour time that I was shooting for, because I had to take breaks because of it. If you feel something nagging, hop on it immediately, pull up a tendon and ligament chart to identify where the nagging is located, and then see if you could find others who are experiencing the same thing that you are, so that you can find out how to get ahead before you have a real issue on your hands. Next is running too hard or too slow. We covered running too hard, yes, but you can be running too slow. Maybe you have done a lot of research, you've read about heart rate zones, and you've undoubtedly heard about the benefits of zone 2 running, which is 60 to 70% of your max heart rate, or there's another one called MAF tone running. If you're new to running, your zone 2 heart rate is going to be way too slow to allow you to get sufficient miles in or even run with proper form. I tried it for a week and nearly got injured after a long run because the slower running impacted my running form, and so it tore up my lower back for days afterwards. Especially if you're on a shorter training schedule, you are better served sticking close to what's called MAF tone. It's 180 minus your age being the heart rate that you should train at or around. The idea is that we want to efficiently get miles in while being able to recover well from the work and not be dead all day. Next, not having a fuel plan. We covered having a fuel plan. Have a fuel plan, practice it. There we have it. You have all the tools that you need to run your first marathon without being on the brink of death for hours. You've earned yourself a nice few days of rest, and you're gonna need it because you will barely be able to walk the next day. There you have it. For more great content like this that's gonna help you out, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time. Good luck with the race.